Welcome to Anim Blackbox, and we hope you enjoy the storyline on this channel. Let's get started. The story begins. A yellow-haired man was fighting an unknown creature. He beat many of the strange creatures very easily. He even felt that they were too weak to fight him. The strange creatures began to be amazed and asked who he was. The yellow-haired man answered that he was the strongest human with 9-star great mage, and his name was Traumen. The strange creatures were annoyed because how could lowly creatures like humans defeat them easily, and Lucas beat them with the power he had and began to hit his magic on the group of strange creatures on the ground, and with a strong magic Lucas eliminated the strange creatures. But when Lucas was proud of his strength, there was a voice behind him and said, "Your ego quite extreme, Traumen," and a person in a robe approached Lucas and said, "We are the law of this world and who manage chaos." Demigod, he introduced himself with the name Demigod, where his presence was to be praised and applauded as God. But Lucas said, "If I've never applauded and not praised you." Lucas and the demigod argued, but quickly the demigod's hand grabbed Lucas' body, and Lucas was unable to fight back. "This is a sin for those who reject God," said the demigod, and Lucas was put into a prison of darkness, as punishment from the god. The story moves to the present day where there is a student who is being beaten by his schoolmates because he doesn't want to give them money. They say it's a shame if the third child of the Blake family doesn't have money. They also say that he is just useless trash, and they continue their crimes by beating the student. Before leaving, they remind him to get ready for tomorrow's practice. "You will be paired with me." They threaten the poor student and just leave. This gray-haired student cries on the floor and says, "I want to be stronger." And Lucas Traumen's soul, who is in the prison of darkness, hears the student's words. Lucas wakes up and feels that he is starting to lose his mind. He feels that he has been in the prison of darkness for thousands of years, accompanied by thousands of devil's hands that continue to hug him, as if not letting Lucas go. "The punishment for defying God is this fear I feel," said Lucas while full of questions. Back to the student who was hit by his friend earlier, he faced his father, who was also the leader of the Blake family. His father was very disappointed with him because he was too weak and embarrassed him. He also wanted his son to leave him because his weakness had embarrassed the Blake family. This student's name was Frey Blake. Frey cried because his father didn't want him and felt like he never knew him. Frey went to his room and held a bottle to leave this world forever. In the prison of darkness, Lucas went berserk and felt that now was the time for him to get out of this prison. He was angry with God who imprisoned him. There was no command from God, he said. He began to threaten Demigod. "I'll endure this hellish place for as long as possible if it's to punch your face." And Frey started bleeding because he had drunk the medicine from the bottle earlier. Lucas felt that someone would pull him out, but he didn't know who entered his subconscious. Frey, who regretted his weak life, finally had to leave the world. They both seemed to meet in their subconscious, and Lucas' soul entered Frey Blake's body. Although he still didn't believe it, Lucas returned to the world after 4,000 years in the prison of darkness. Lucas thanked Frey for giving him freedom. The new Frey opened the window of his room and looked at the moon while pointing at the moon and saying, "See you soon." This is Frey's greeting to the demigod who had imprisoned him for thousands of years. At night, Lucas, or now we call him Frey Blake, did training, because for thousands of years his body and mana in him had never been trained, and Lucas could not use all his strength in Frey's body, because Frey's body was very weak and Lucas was one of the strongest humans in the world, who had a 9-star level and a great mage ever life. While continuing to train his body and mana, he still remembered when he was still in the prison of darkness, and made him more convinced that this was the time to take revenge on the demigod. So he continued to train and make his new body able to accept Lucas's former strength. Frey trained until morning arrived, and Frey had reached 5-star ability. However, he bleeds from his mouth because Frey's body is not able to withstand the large mana load in just one night. Frey removes all the obstacles in his body by vomiting all the dirty blood in his body. Tired of practicing all night, Frey changed into her school uniform and ate in the school cafeteria. All the students were surprised by what Frey did, because Frey who used to eat this much in the cafeteria, and it was also impossible for a cowardly Frey to dare to eat in the cafeteria with gusto and uncivilized. Lucas, or Frey, is now very happy to be able to eat this deliciously, because while in the prison of darkness he could not eat or drink, because there was no time there. After being full, Frey went to class where the bullies from yesterday were waiting for him there. They were annoyed because it turned out that Frey did not commit suicide, and they even bet that Frey would commit suicide. The orange-haired student blocked Frey's steps, and the big man said, "Give me 10 lunch ticket," because he lost the bet while holding Frey's head. Realizing that the two of them were not Frey's old friends, Lucas remembered, no matter in the past or now, there are always bad people like them. The big man shouted, "Where's my ticket?" and slapped Frey, but instead he was the one who was thrown away. Everyone in the class was shocked by this incident. Then he realized that it was them who made Frey give up on his life. The big man tried to hit Frey again, but Frey manna hit back, and he was thrown away and fell off in the classroom wall and fainted. All the students in the class shouted, "Did he fly?" And Frey felt sorry for doing that to the children. Yes, because he realized that his real age was more than 4,000 years. When the class was getting more crowded, a teacher named Professor Dio came in and calmed the class down. He asked what this was, and the students said that Jack had fainted. It turned out that the big boy was named Jack. However, it seemed that the professor was more interested in what made Jack faint, because there was still some mana left in Jack's body. Professor Dio was shocked because there was no way a talented student could do this. Even among all the professors, it was impossible to do this. Professor Dio took Jack to the health room, and the class was continued by Professor Kevin. Professor Kevin seemed like a pervert, because he was immediately happy and put on a disgusting face when he saw a beautiful student in front of his class, especially when he saw a student named Isabel. However, Professor Kevin's lewd gaze stopped when he saw Frey in the front seat. He wondered why Frey came to class today. Professor Kevin began to confront Frey, because she often didn't come to his class. Feeling that if her class was considered unimportant, Professor Kevin intended to embarrass Frey in front of all her classmates. He also gave a question, but if he could not answer it, he would be responsible for all the mistakes of the students throughout the academy. Frey could only be silent and looked annoyed. Professor Kevin began to ask, "Mention 3 items used by the magic warrior King Cassian." And Frey was shocked by the question. Around 4,000 ago, a muscular man was training in a place surrounded by mountains. With one punch, he could split a mountain. Then someone said, "Train slowly, because if you don't, you will destroy all the mountains here, and all the animals here will lose their homes." It turned out that the man was Lucas. Lucas was a friend of King Cassian who wanted to meet his old friend. Lucas protested, because Cassian was busy training, even though his friend came to visit him. Cassian said that he had prepared tea for Lucas to drink. Lucas continued his complaint, "If you keep training, when will you get a wife?" But Cassian replied, "You are the same. You don't understand a woman's heart. A martial artist must see women like stones, because anyone who is tempted by love, then he cannot be a real fighter." And the two of them drank together as friends. It turned out that it was Lucas' memory 4,000 years ago, when he was still Lucas Traumen. Frey unconsciously laughed in front of Professor Kevin. From a distance, Isabel saw that Frey would get into trouble, because she dared to laugh in front of Professor Kevin. However, Isabel also didn't seem to like Professor Kevin's treatment, and it seemed that he was only bragging about his knowledge to the students. Isabel stood up and denied Professor Kevin's question, because Cassian is a martial art, so he doesn't use magic items. Cassian only uses his physical body to fight. Professor Kevin looked annoyed with what Isabel said. He said, "Our Cassian is not a magician," said Professor Kevin. "Are you insulting all practitioners who are training the magic warrior techniques?" But Isabel answered, "I don't think this is an incorrect interpretation." Everyone in the class was shocked by Isabel's resistance. Even Frey remembered, if Cassian didn't like being called a magician, Cassian would be furious if he was called a magician, because Cassian was a martial artist. However, it seemed that Professor Kevin was getting more and more annoyed with Isabel's resistance, and he held Isabel's shoulder. Isabel pushed away Professor Kevin's hand, but Professor Kevin considered it disrespectful. When Professor Kevin confronted Isabel, Lucas answered, "The Tiger King's gloves, the giant's belt, and Gale necklace." Cassian, the minimalist man, said Frey, and Professor Kevin said, if Lucas' answer was correct. Professor Kevin returned his focus to Isabel, because he considered it disrespectful while holding Isabel's hand. Isabel looked scared by what Professor Kevin did. But suddenly Frey said to Professor Kevin, "Do you know, if King Cassian always says this, feelings of love and affection are evil thoughts that can perturb a martial artist's composure. Martial artists must see women are mere rocks. Those who fall to their desires and forget their duties will not be able to stand straight on their feet, and will degrade into creatures worse than lowly beasts." Everyone was silent, and Professor Kevin asked, "What do you want to say?" Lucas said maybe Cassian was wrong, seeing how you stood perfectly on both of your feet. Professor Kevin felt like he was making fun of him, because he was standing straight while holding a woman's hand. Professor Kevin got angry and shouted, "Frey Blake." Then Professor Kevin calmed himself down and said, "Have you lost your mind because you can answer one question? Remember, you have to be responsible to all the students in the academy if you answer my question wrong, even just one question." Frey answered, wit full of confidence. "Next question."